Nothing's real, and everything is a matter of perspective. Welcome, everyone, to Parking Lot Philosophy, the only show that makes bold claims. Today I have a story, so bear with me. Over the weekend, my wife and I were going to see a movie. It was a late showing. Late for me is, anything past 9 going out and doing something. So it was 9:30. We were going to go pick up snacks from Target beforehand because we had a coupon for Target. Otherwise, Aldi's got my back. And so we were going out of the house. We weren't necessarily late on time. And, walking out, putting my shoes on, we get into the car. We're about 3 stoplights away. And then my wife asks, "Are you sure you locked the door?" Now, I was pretty certain because I remember specifically having the keys to my house, just right there in my hand after walking out of the house, because that's, you hold the keys and then you switch them to your car key. And so I was like, oh, I am certain I locked the house. There's no way that I didn't lock the house. And I started to think in the back of my head, I was like, did I lock the house? Because it is you start to wonder. And my wife normally is the type of person to ask a million times, like, oh, did you turn off the stove? Did you turn off the light? Like all of the things. I am certain I locked the door to the house. And so we keep on driving. She's like, okay. And then we get to the next stoplight and I'm sitting there waiting for the light to change. And I'm like, well, now I don't know. Did I lock the house, or am I just worrying that I didn't lock the house because you planted the seed in my mind that, I didn't lock the house? And she's like, well, you probably locked the house. It's just, I wanted to make sure. And I was like, okay. And then I was starting to think, we keep going. We hit like every stoplight, mind you. At the next stoplight, I'm thinking like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Because we have cameras around our house. Like we have the Ring doorbell and stuff, and on our back door as well. And I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And, I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, somebody could get in, but we record them. But then it's like, well, if they get in and we record them, let's say that our dog's barking. Something happens to our dog. We don't want that to happen. And so we get to Target after all of this time, and I tell my wife, I'm like, I really don't know if I locked the door now, but I think I did, but it's going to like nag at me this whole time. And mind you, we're 15 minutes away or something. We're already to the store nearly. It's right next to the movie theater. And so I was like, well, crud. So we get some of our snacks and things, and my wife's looking for something. And so then I decide to pull up one of our cameras. We have one that you can see the back door when we leave. And so I look at it, and of course there's a skip in the video, and you can see me walking out with keys in hand, put my shoes on, and then the next thing it cuts to, because it saw motion and then it skips to the next part it saw motion, is us walking out. So you can't see the in-between where I would have locked the house anyway. And so I'm like, fuck. I don't know if I locked the house. The video doesn't show me locking the house. Now I'm worried I didn't lock the house. And so I was like, I think it's best if we just go back and make sure. We're not going to be late for the movie. We were going to be early so we could see all the previews. But it was like, well, okay. So I drive back. She just finishes shopping. So we, multitask. And at every single light, I'm thinking, fuck, am I being stupid? Is this just a whole big, I'm gaslighting myself into thinking I didn't lock it? Or am I being cautious because what would the worst thing that could happen be? Or is it none of those things? And no, I didn't lock the door. So I'm actually I'm doing the thing I should have done in the first place. And so as I was driving down, much like I do in the mornings, when I'm driving in silence by myself, I was thinking about not necessarily all the things I was thinking, but I was thinking about this moment in particular. And I was like, well, this is really not a learning experience about, being prepared or being cautious or, double checking things. It's really a story and a situation about perception, because I was 100% sure that I locked the house when we left. I was certain that I had done it. I had perceived in my mind that I had, went to the door, I had locked the house. My wife was not even worried necessarily about the house being unlocked. She was just making sure. Now, of course, it was a little ways away. But it was just like, oh yeah, you're sure you got that? And it was like, okay. And by a little ways away, I mean like 2 minutes. So, it wasn't even like she perceived the house as unlocked. But all that it took to shatter my reality was the thought that the house could be unlocked. And then all of a sudden it went from, okay, the house is locked, we don't have to worry about anything, to the house isn't locked, the house is going to get robbed. But the thing is, we have cameras. No one went to the back door of the house. No one went to the house whatsoever while we were out at the movie theater. And so no matter what, no one would have gotten in. But if someone had the opportunity to get in, obviously that would be worst case scenario. So all of these things that I'm thinking, that the reality of the situation was I did not lock the door. That is the climax of the story. Sorry to cliffhang you there. I did not lock the door. So it was a great thing that I went back. But I think this is a really great story to exemplify how we create our own realities. And even further, people, influence them. If my wife wouldn't have mentioned it, if she maybe thought it but didn't mention it, I don't think I would have thought I didn't lock the door. We would have went to the movie, watched the whole movie. The night would have unfolded the exact same way, minus us being not able to see the previews, which isn't like a huge deal. It just, it's a little bit more relaxing. And so, yeah, it would have ended up the same exact way. It's just when we got back, it would have been, oh, we didn't lock the door. And so it's such an interesting thing because, one thing I was thinking is we all have kind of these stories in the back of our head. It's like, oh, this was a bad experience. This was a good experience. This was like a scary experience. But all of these things are perceptions that we put on those stories. Because for me, I would probably think of this story, if I'm just going about thinking about the things I've done, I'm like, that's embarrassing. I'm going to make sure I double check next time. Whereas it could just as much be, the reason I forgot to lock the house is because I had my shoes in our mudroom. And so then instead of doing, put my shoes on before we even exit the house, I actually was exiting the house, putting my shoes on. And then that's where I forgot to lock it, because my habit is I put my shoes on, and we go, or I put my shoes on and then lock the door. But instead this time it was flipped. And so because of that, maybe it's don't multitask, a thing that I personally think I can't do very well. On the other side too, it could just be, be safe than sorry. I decided to go back. It was a good thing I went back. And so really there's all these different ways to perceive this story. And I think that applies to all of the experiences we have in our life. It is really funny, but Inside Out legitimately has a very interesting plot, because the whole point is that if you view everything in one way, you're going to have a very bad life. You're going to be very sad all the time and things like that. If you're always trying to be happy, you're not going to necessarily be happy. And so if you can see all the, the heartfelt moments in any given situation, I mean, that can be really powerful. I mean, that's what Inside Out is about. And so same thing, if you have a bad experience, for instance, I remember early on when I started working, a lot of times what I would do, I'm salaried, is I would leave when I'm done with work. When I've finished the things for the day, I would just leave. And sometimes that meant I would leave at 3. And I thought that was fine. And then I remember one time my boss was like, "Hey, I tried to come see you yesterday. What time are you leaving?" And I was like, "Oh, I had just left a little bit early because I got things finished." My boss wasn't even talking about my performance or anything. And they weren't worried about it either. And they were like, "Oh, okay." I was, yeah, just seeing. I was the one who was worried, "Oh shit, I'm in the probationary period. I'm going to get fired." And I got so worried that I had a panic attack in my car later that day when like leaving for like something I had to go do. That was part of my job. I left for that and I got so worried that like I just nearly couldn't go do that. So I had to sit in my car. I'm happy I left early and had like an extra like, 15, 30 minutes because I was so freaked out. But the reality is that was all my perception. My boss was not saying I was doing a bad job or anything like that. It was just, "Oh, hey, I was going to, stop by yesterday and you weren't here." Now, yes, they probably were saying in a way, "Hey, you should probably stay longer." And I do. But that's one of the things is it is your perception that makes things good or bad. I think honestly, thinking about that story, it's a really great story if you think about it because my boss noticed that I was gone. A, how oftentimes would an employer notice? But B, they noticed and weren't mad at me. They were just, kind of doing like a light, "Hey, just so you know." I could have gotten in a lot of serious trouble. I could have lost my job because I was in the probationary period. They can fire you for any reason. And so the fact that it was just a simple like, "Hey, just, stick around." Um, Great. Honestly, 10 out of 10. And the thing is, now sometimes I still do leave at 3. But it's more of like an every once in a while thing of like, "Oh, it's a Friday, no one's here. Let's go ahead and leave a little bit early." But again, too, it's always also now, it's not, I just do it out of the blue. It's, "Oh, hey, I think I'm going to go home now." And so really, I mean, it's a learning experience, things like that. Really, I mean, look back at some of your worst situations in your life. That is not by any means my worst situation in my life. But it's just one in recent memory that it's been like a little bit like, ah. And so that's one of the things. Look back at your memories, good or bad, and kind of look at their perception. And even to look at like society too. I mean, think about all the things, the whole reason why I went back to the house is because I was worried because of something my wife said. Do the same thing to the things in going on in life. Are you having a negative perception of something because of what society says? And is that actually true? Or is that them like altering your reality? So anyway, back to the whole beginning. Reality is fake. It's all about perception. There's like a great quote, or is it a proverb? I don't know. There was like an old quote that I remember. And it was like, "How do we know we're not a butterfly?" or something like that. And it's all about, we could just be some creature's dream. There's no way of knowing what we really are because how do you know what reality is? You can say like, "Oh, reality is what I can feel and touch." But the thing is like you can think like, have you ever seen those boxes where you put your hand in and it's like, "Oh, it's a snake," but really in reality it's, rubber. So reality is really tough to define. I think that's really interesting. But stick to your perception, but also to think about the way you perceive things. So anyway, I should probably get going now. Bye for now.